Hello, this is Three Things with Ian, the podcast where I talk about three interesting things. It is May 5th. This is episode 125. Welcome. Yes, I am wearing the same shirt as yesterday. I had to wear it to school to show off my shirt. So, on today's episode, you may have seen the short that I had a little teaser. We answered the debate, 100 men versus one gorilla. Who wins? We talk about this day in history. And we talk about a really influential, perhaps the most seminal improv comedy group of Brits known to grace the planet Earth. Monty Python, of course. But let's start with the topic everybody wants to hear about. And it's not gorillas. On this day, 1961, Alan Shepard, remember the name? Piloted the Mercury Redstone 3 mission and became the second person and the first American to travel into space. Right? I'll give you some fun facts about this day. Wikipedia had a very interesting take on it. It talked a lot about the biological functions of the day. So let's get into it. He woke at 1:10 a.m. and he ate a breakfast of orange juice, a filet mignon wrapped in bacon, and scrambled eggs with his backup, John Glenn, and flight surgeon William K. Douglas. I'm not sure what the flight surgeon's role is there, but anyway, he got onto the spacecraft at 5:15 a.m. It was expected to lift off within 2 hours. It did not. Shepard's suit did not have any provision for elimination of body waste. And so uncomfortably, he did have to, after being sort of trapped there, strapped into the gurney, if you will, the capsule seat, he did have to evacuate his bladder, which caused them to have to turn off medical sensors to avoid shorting out. And it also puddled in the back of his, bottom, and where it was absorbed by his undergarments. So in case you didn't know, we that delay was sort of costly for maybe his personal quality of life there on this mission. After, of course, they learned from this and they put a liquid waste collection vessel suit apparatus into all spacesuits going forward, including today's. So Alan Shepard's flight was different for a lot of reasons. Unlike Gargin's, that's the Soviet cosmonaut, he was only up for 108 minutes. Shepard stayed on a suborbital trajectory for the 15-minute flight, which reached an altitude of 101 nautical miles. And unlike Gargin, whose flight was automatic, Shepard had some control of the Freedom 7, especially the altitude. He had control over that. That was important. Obviously, this launch was seen by millions on television. It was a huge cultural event. And according to Gene Kranz in his 2000 book, Failure is Not an Option, when reporters asked Shepard what he thought about as he sat upon the top of the rocket, waiting for liftoff, he had replied, "The fact that every part of this ship was built by the lowest bidder." That was interesting. So even so, today we still have this sort of battle between private versus public, and Boeing and all these other people who put bids on, who put financial points of interest on spaceships and the apparatus. And so maybe sometimes we do go for the lowest bidder. I don't think the Boeing team was very satisfied with their botched mission to get to rescue the astronauts who were up there for 8 months. But anyway, so Alan Shepard on this day, 1961. I was not born. My one parent was alive and one was 1 year old. So anyway, he was second man in space. What a flight. What a flight. All right, here we go. The big boy one. 100 men could beat a gorilla in a fight. So apparently this has been a TikTok thing. It was actually 7 years old. Apparently it galvanized social media. I keep seeing this. Obviously, this is a very weird confrontation that would never happen. Gorillas are generally peaceful creatures who avoid conflict. I don't know why 100 men would be together with the sole objective of taking down a gorilla. Obviously, this is one of those, like, who would win series. I mean, a lot of kids have these books. You can see, like, who would win, a Komodo dragon versus a cobra. So this is no different. And there's memes, and this is a whole thing. So gorillas are, in fact, gentle giants. They would avoid conflict. Silverback would only fight to protect his family. So I guess in this scenario, we have 100 people hell-bent on destroying a gorilla, and he just wants to save his family. I guess at that point, they might fight. So the answer is not pretty. It's pretty graphic, but 100 men, if they worked in unison and were interested in pinning down this poor creature and inflicting just blunt force trauma to the skull area, the 100 men would be able to overpower him if they were united and committed. It would not be pretty. There would be broken necks. There would be severe arterial bite wounds, massive concussions leading to fatal brain bleeds, and asphyxiation from other men piling on top of each other. It would be a kamikaze mission. It would work. Survivors could be paralyzed, disfigured, but at some point they would be able to overtake the gorilla and, like I said, blunt force trauma, twisting of the head and neck. It gets weird quickly. A human straitjacket could do this. Obviously, like we said before, it's not really a fair fight. I don't know the origins of this meme. Obviously, the gorilla is a 400 plus pound creature, large muscle mass, sharp canines, very, very, very formidable opponent. But obviously, if the 100 men are able to communicate and talk and plan, they're not really, the girls aren't really set up to fend off that many persons. And then also there's other practical considerations, such as, are these 100 average guys? Are these 100 John Cena and The Rock and Hulk Hogan type figures? Are these bodybuilders? So, I mean, if 6 or 8 people went at a gorilla one at a time, no weapons involved, the gorilla could potentially, according to some primatologists, take down several waves of these people. Like I said, it's an interesting thought experiment, but if you actually think about it, it gets kind of, violent pretty quick. So one of the interesting things scientifically, though, is all apes have 2 types of muscle fibers, slow twitch and fast twitch. Fast twitch gives you that explosive power. Human muscles are about half and half, but apes are more fast twitch than slow. Gorillas are 85% fast twitch, so pound for pound of muscle mass, they're much more powerful than we are. Everyone knows that. Oh, not everyone knows that, but I mean, even chimpanzees can rip human arms off. They can pull your arm out of your socket, and I don't know how many adult men can pull other adult men's arms out of their sockets. I'm sure it's possible if they have enough leverage with their legs and they're pulling from the right angle, but chimpanzees can do this quite a bit easier. So I hope this never happens. I'm kind of more of a pacifist than anything else in life, but I guess the answer is, I told you the answer, and if the men work together and they're interested in pinning down the gorilla and taking away its advantage, a lot of men would be killed, but the gorilla would finally probably also expire. I hope that the silverback gorillas can just keep napping and laying on their backs and taking care of their families and living a good life. And we don't waste too much time wondering if they could knock down 100 humans. As all internet trends and memes go, within a month or two, this will probably be in the wastebasket of internet refuge. But anyway, that is your answer for the 100 men versus a gorilla. There's probably more interesting matchups. My kids have those Who Would Win book series. Sometimes they're kind of interesting. Orca versus a killer whale, which is the same creature, so I would say orca versus a great white shark, perhaps. But anyway, let's talk about Monty Python. Not an animal, despite the name Python. I'm actually not sure why they're called Monty Python. Maybe someone who's listening to this can quickly, not in real time, but can post. They're called Monty Python for this reason. Anyway, they are an irreverent comedy troupe who are quoted. They have some of the most quotable quotes of any humor troupe out there. The Monty Python Flying Circus is celebrated for its absurdist scenarios, visual gags, and innovative writing styles. You have John Cleese, Michael Palin, Terry Jones, Terry Gilliam, Eric Idle, and the sadly departed Graham Chapman, who succumbed to a combination of alcoholism and other issues. They brought surrealism and razor-sharp, intellectually driven wordplay into the nation's living rooms for many, many, many years. Monty Python is a different kind of humor. I think it's phenomenal. It is more of like your PG-13 humor. It does not rely on sexual innuendos are present. There's double entendres, but it's not a risque and TVMA and full sort of full attack on the senses in terms of like swearing. It's a more sophisticated intellectualism. It's very British. It is probably the most British of all British things. It's seminal TV to television comedy. These guys, so much comedy that you see is in some way or most ways, they can draw on their lineage back to Monty Python and the way that they constructed jokes. Very, very smart. This is smart humor. This is not your... I consider Eastbound and Down and The Righteous Gemstones kind of comedy. It's more like dumb humor. It's still funny. There's multiple ways of being funny, but the Monty Python way, I think, is particularly innovative, and the back catalog of just skits you can pull up and watch on YouTube is just super deep. So sketch comedy owes a lot to Monty Python. Today, I bring it up because it is an anniversary of the inaugural Monty Python's Flying Circus program. It was just enduring quotes and catchphrases. You know, I was going to do a top 5 list of the best 5 sketches, but sort of hard to set them up without starting having a visual component. But the cultural impact, Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and The Meaning of Life, you know, are among the most quoted movies, and just ways of discussing absurd topics in a very PG way. I think that's sort of their lasting legacies. You don't have to be graphic and risque to be funny. You can just be you can be goofy, but it's got to have, there's always a soul and there's always a basis for their comedy. And so I raise my comedy glass to Monty Python and the fantastic work they did, and may we celebrate by watching some skits tonight together. That's it for tonight, folks. Or today, wherever you're watching this, in the morning, evening, night. I'm not supposed to say timestamp it, but I seem to always make that mistake. Anyway, I am glad to be with you for these 12 minutes, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Please do not fight any gorillas on your way out.